Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining me this next hour. You're listening to Everyday Astrology with C.A. Brooks on Transcendental Tuesdays, and we're broadcasting on 12radio.com and simulcasting on the YouTube channel by the same name, Everyday Astrology with C.A. Brooks. So welcome. Thank you for being here. This is October 14th. 2025, and I have a guest today, the amazing Abdelbaki, who is a Vedic astrologer and tarot master. He joins me on the second Tuesday of the month. That's our schedule, and we always have a provocative conversation. We were just talking before we went on the air, and I said it's always nice. And I said, wait a minute, no, it's not nice. It's provocative. It's fun. It's entertaining. That's what it is. So I always love to hear what's coming out of Mo's mind. Now, I know many of you know him. You've listened to him for years on 12 Radio. He also has a YouTube channel that we'll talk about at the end of the hour. He has a show on Wednesdays, Mo's Paisley Penny Arcade. And you can listen to that on 12 Radio as well as YouTube. So, make sure that you catch that. And if you haven't heard it before, go back and check out some of those older shows. They're always going to be provocative and entertaining. And before we get started today, I also want to encourage you, like I usually do, to check out Mark's Power Peak. That is an online newsletter that you can subscribe to for free. If you go to any of the 12 sites or the 12 sites, I always say go to 12listen.com and you will see a link that will take you to Mark's Power Peak. And I highly recommend that, not only because I write an article that is the week ahead that'll tell you about all the astrology for the week, but also there's a number of other articles. And if you're listening to this show, you're probably interested in spirituality or numerology, feng shui, I Ching, tarot, any of those metaphysical and esoteric subjects. And you'll find other articles in that newsletter that will pique your interest. So please go check that out. And especially right now, because when Mo's on the show, we're not going to talk about all the details that are going on this week. We're going to highlight a few, but we're not going to talk about all of them. So if you want to know, hey, what's Tuesday look like? What does Thursday look like? Please go check out Mark's Power Peak. And there again, you can find it by using a link on 12listen.com. All right, so we are going to look just quickly at the week ahead. So this is for the week of October 13th. And what we've got going on, much like last week, this week is what I call front-loaded. Because two of the things that are really happening or that you want to pay attention to, they already happened. It was yesterday, on Monday, October 13th. Now, what happened is that Venus entered Libra, which is one of her home signs, and Pluto, drum roll, after being retrograde since the first week of May, is now moving direct. And I know a lot of people like that, even though the truth is you're not likely to have noticed anything. It's not like an earthquake or, some incredible shift, but especially maybe if you're an Aquarian, because Pluto's in Aquarius, or if you're a Scorpio, maybe you really do notice that shift of energy. And personally, I do think it's important. It's important to just say, hey, I've learned some lessons. There's some things to incorporate. What's one of the great lessons of the last, 4 or 5 months? And what kind of change can I make in my life that's going to be significant, maybe even profound? So it's important. And it's the first of those, what we call outer planets, that is turning direct, because as you know, they all go direct, or they all go retrograde, not the sun and the moon, but most of the planets go retrograde every single year. And those outer planets, meaning the ones farthest from the sun, they look like they're retrograde from Earth for 4 or 5 months at a time. So it's kind of, what I call the wallpaper, or the color of the walls. We get used to it, but it does, have this little tick in our consciousness. So we pay attention to it. So I'd like to talk now just for a few minutes about Venus moving into Libra. And I'm hoping when Mo comes on, he can talk about Venus in Libra from his perspective. And also, I'd like to get into the Sun in Scorpio, because that's going to actually happen next Wednesday. The Sun is going to start a new solar cycle in Scorpio. And since we're not going to talk, to Mo for another month, I'd love to have his take on that particular cycle as well, just to see what he's thinking or to just throw some stuff out there. So that's what we're going to talk about. But now here's my take on Venus in Libra. And I'm going to just use the example of Grace Kelly, because Venus in Libra is just this, she rules Libra. And so when I think of, who's an iconic person or what is an image that just seems so Venus and Libra, the grace, the diplomacy, the appearance, the balance, the harmony, kind of this strong backbone, but still this loving presence and about relationships. I just think Grace Kelly is a good example of this. And by the way, she was born with Venus in Libra, as well as having 3 planets in Scorpio, including the Sun and Mercury and Mars. And of course, Mercury and Mars are in Scorpio right now. So I thought, hey, we got to talk about her a little bit. But what I would offer you, and I think many of you probably have seen this movie, it's old, but it's on a lot because it's one of the better Hitchcock movies. It's called Rear Window. Now, if you picture her, or if you think about if you've ever seen it, here she is in this show, and she's just iconic in terms of hair is perfect, etc. But here's the other thing. It's a lot more than just visual, with a Libra. Now, of course, appearance is very important because Venus is about what we think is attractive and how we make ourselves attractive. So, of course, when she's in Libra, that visual is very, very important. But I think of one scene in Rear Window that, once again, just seems so perfect for Venus and Libra. And that is that Grace Kelly is trying to convince Jimmy Stewart that he should throw away this old cigarette case. And he's picked it up. He's a traveling journalist, he takes pictures in very dangerous parts of the world. And he's got this worn and tattered and battered looking cigarette case. And she kind of turns up her nose, almost in this, she's not even disguising the fact that it's a very disparaging look. And she wants him to throw it away. And she has bought him this new shiny one that's very, it's just very upscale. And, of course, he's like, well, I don't know. And like I said, she just gives him this very disparaging look. But the other thing is, throughout the show, she's very dramatic about kind of bristling whenever he suggests, I don't think you're cut out for the gritty life that I lead. And so to me, it's very Venus and Libra. She knows what she wants. She wants him. And she's got this idea in mind, but she still, like I said, it's very thinly veiled when she's kind of trying to manipulate him or change him over to her kind of thinking. So I just think the movie from that perspective is masterful. I think Hitchcock did a great job of choosing her in that particular role because it's perfect. It was kind of written for Venus and Libra. But, maybe with that Scorpio backbone too. So not all people that have Venus and Libra, of course, are going to look like Grace Kelly or act like that. But when you see Venus and Libra, you're always going to see a streak of creativity, artistry, a love of color and beauty and balance, and an appreciation of arts. You often see lots of artists with planets in Libra. It's the sign of art. You'll see people that are in jobs of diplomacy, where tact is very important. The desire to get along with others. It's one of their trademarks. And in general, of course, relationships, all kinds of relationships are very important to Libra. So if you see a person born with planets in that sign, you know that that's important. Socializing, interacting with others, being part of a team, and especially having a partner. Those are things that really feed into their level of contentment and satisfaction. And they kind of make it a life interest to know how to attract certain people and situations into their lives. And that's what I want to stick on for just a couple of minutes. because, you know, they're not all the same, of course, and they're not going to always like the same things. But what is going to happen, I think, is that Venus in Libra, more so than some of the other signs, is willing to kind of adapt to what their partner wants, because they want their partner to be happy. They want their friends to be happy. That's part of their own happiness. So it's so easy to kind of just shapeshift into that person who's totally empathetic and concerned with other people's feelings. But for our own mental and emotional health, and I say that for all of us under this influence, not just if you have Venus in Libra, but we need to know what our own feelings are, what our preferences are. We need to be able to identify those, because otherwise we can fall into that trap of, you know, always prioritizing making somebody else happy and believing that that's what always makes us happy. You know, adjusting ourselves to be liked or approved of or accepted and loved by other people. And, you know, I'm not saying it's bad, it's a good thing. I mean, let's face it, that's part of the whole idea of being in a relationship, is being able to make those compromises, being able to make those kinds of shifts. But if we don't know what we want, then how are we ever going to attract it? That's what Venus does. She attracts what we want into our life. So if we're not clear on what's going to make us happy, or what we think is beautiful, what we think is valuable, then how are we ever going to use that power of Venus to pull those things into our lives? Right? So I just wanted to throw that out there to kind of start the conversation off with Mo. So welcome, Mo. Thank you for being here. And let's
Thank
talk.
you for having me.
Yeah, let's talk Venus and Libra, Sun in Scorpio, or anything else that you want to get into today.
Well, interestingly enough, I love Rear Window. It's a great movie and excellent beginning because, you know, Grace Kelly in that movie is smoking hot sexy.
Yes.
And that's one thing that I mean, she pours it on. And
Mm-hmm.
she is what we might have called back in the day a sex kitten, you know?
Uh-huh.
And that's something that Hitchcock absolutely would have wanted. He would have really wanted that energy and that tension between Jimmy Stewart when they're, "Oh, come over here," and, you know, she sits on his lap,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure the entire movie theater gasped, you know? I'm sure that there was a lot of that. But, it's a fascinating energy because that's that Venus, and the Libra, it's all about that movie's all about justice, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It
Yes, it
really
is.
is, and she shows incredible courage and recklessness a bit,
Mm-hmm.
but she's incredibly brave. I love that aspect of her,
Mm-hmm.
in the movie, and, of course, she was stunningly gorgeous. Um, and very, very fashionable, I might add, as you said. You know,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
and when she wears that negligee and spends the night, I mean, we're Hitch leaves it up to us to decide did anything happen or not. I
Right.
love that. Um,
Yes.
and of course, he was notoriously a lech. So, I mean, there's all these things going on, but, it has that lovely Scorpio energy in it as well, because
Oh,
the tension is
definitely.
always there, and of course, the death aspect, which is Scorpio energy as well, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so, great
Oh,
choice here.
well, thank you. Well, that's it. When I started thinking about it, and I thought, oh, yeah, she always comes to mind. But this year, especially when we've got those other two planets sitting there, because, you know, I mean, Mercury is always going to be close to the sun. So it's not that surprising that, you know, Mercury's in Scorpio. But Mars, of course, is only in Scorpio every 2.5 years. So I thought, this is a Grace Kelly year. To be thinking
Yeah,
about her, and like I said, that's the movie that comes to mind, even though you could probably choose other movies, but in that one I just thought, oh my god, it's so Scorpio and so Libra, just as you
and
said.
of
And
course, the incredible Raymond Burr is in that
yes,
film. Oh,
yes.
god, he was so good in that movie, you know?
Yes.
It was just
Yeah, so people,
unbelievable.
if you have not seen this movie for some reason, you've got to see it.
Do you know who else is in that movie? My goodness,
Oh, I'm trying to think. Thelma Ritter?
Thelma Ritter's in that movie? Yes.
Yes.
And,
Was there some, and who else were you thinking of? The
oh god,
policeman, the man?
there's a guy there, the guy who is writing the music. Do you know who he is?
No.
That is David Seville of Alvin and the Chipmunks.
No, I did not know that.
Ross Bagdasarian, that's exactly who that is. Ross Bagdasarian, who goes by his real name in that part, who ends up becoming David Seville of Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Oh my
So,
God. Okay, I did not know that.
bit of trivia there. So, yeah, when I first
Well,
go ahead.
well, and I was just going to say, because of the whole nature of the show, him watching out his rear window and you seeing people at a distance most of the time, I would not even recognize who played the piano player.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, I saw it when I was a kid,
Uh-huh.
on TV, I think, and, I didn't because, as a kid, you didn't see David Seville, just
No,
you
no,
yeah,
right.
and so but when I got the 45 of Witch Doctor, um, and, played it to the point where suddenly it disappeared, from the house. It was like,
Uh-huh.
"Where did it
Uh-huh.
go? I wanna," "Oh, maybe," who knows? Maybe it disintegrated. Um,
Mhm.
but on written by Ross Bagdasarian, and, later you find out that that was, and it was, David Seville was Ross Bagdasarian, but he did all the voices and all that stuff. And it was started with Witch Doctor, and then it became Alvin and the Chipmunks. But, so when I saw it in the credits for the first time, I was like, "Oh my god, that's kind of impressive." So,
Mhm.
but, if you've not seen Rear Window, people, you need to make it your duty, for yourself, because it's an incredible film. It really is marvelous. In a nutshell, Jimmy Stewart, is a photographer who breaks his leg and, is in San Francisco, in the summer. It can get steamy. It's not a bad city. I love San Francisco. I
Mhm.
love San Francisco. Other than Alexandria, Egypt, I think it's my favorite city in the world. Um, and next comes New Orleans. But
Uh-huh.
what a lovely city. And it's in there. And he watches because he's got a broken leg. He's watching an apartment across the way. And that voyeurism, that's
Oh,
definitely
that yeah.
Scorpio.
That's Scorpio too.
Yeah. I mean, that's pure Scorpio energy. I love that. And, in Tarot, Venus is the Empress, and Libra is the Adjustment card or Justice.
Mhm.
So there's all sorts of implications there. I think,
Right.
the being the someone who wants to achieve justice or whatever justice is anymore. Is there justice? I don't know.
Mhm. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's an aspect of Libra and or Venus, but of Libra that we want, and maybe I'm just projecting, but that we want to forget. So often, especially simplified astrology, they'll go for all this loving partnership, beauty, artistry. We really focus on that without saying no. Libra is the scales. And
Right.
maybe more than anything else, they want equality. They want justice. So if something is really out of whack, that Libra is going to come in and go for it,
Well, it's the
you know?
entire concept of entropy,
Mm-hmm.
and if you look at Libra in the sky, it does look like scales. But
Mm-hmm.
the whole point is not that they just want that, they will get that. There is no doubt about that. That all comes from the ancient Egyptian concept of Ma'at. Ma'at was the idea of truth, that there is no other thing than truth, that truth is the bottom line. And
Mm-hmm.
Ma'at was a goddess. Ma'a meant truth, and Ma'at was the goddess of truth. And when we pass, you were judged by 43 deities, um, in the hall of judgment. And in that hall of judgment, they took your heart out of your chest. It was already gone. And it
Yeah.
was like a little jar. And in that jar was everything you ever did. So you thought with your heart, you didn't think with your brain. Your brain was just something kind of useless, you know.
Hmm.
They didn't give it a whole lot of. They realized that the brain was necessary in life because when you had a problem, they actually did tree panning back then, and they would open up the skull and they would, relieve pressure and stuff like that. But they didn't consider the brain important. What was important was your heart. And so when you see on tomb walls someone has their hand on their heart, it means they're thinking. Is that which I think is
Okay.
just fascinating.
Uh-huh.
But amongst other things. But they would ask you questions in the underworld, and all you had to do was answer truthfully. That was the most important thing. Answer truthfully. And if you could answer truthfully, true of words meant dead. When someone was true of words, it meant that they had passed. Um, and if you could do it successfully and be honest about your life, then chances are you could make it, unless what you did was so heinous, unless you had, like, let's say, I don't know, 34 felony counts. No, no, Mo, don't go there. Anyway, so we'll just forget that. But if you could be honest about yourself and loved the truth and loved, in fact, in Crowley's deck, you're familiar with the adjustment card in that deck,
Hmm.
probably.
Hmm.
That is
Yeah.
Maat. Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
she's balanced on the tip of the sword,
Right.
and she has those double plumed ostrich feathers on the top, so that any breeze, any tiny little wind that comes by at all will make her move. She will topple, not topple, but she's like one of those wobble dolls,
Uh-huh.
those, um, and so
Bobbleheads.
any
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
anything that is not absolutely the truth will make her move, and she'll know it's a lie. So there is this, and when we talk about entropy in nature, that's a very important concept, that negative entropy is what we live. When we pave a street, that's negative entropy, right?
Now,
Because
why do you
we're
call it negative entropy?
because entropy is is in essence nature. It's
Hmm.
it's nature's attempt to achieve its lowest common state, its
Okay. All
natural
right.
state. Let's call it
Hmm.
that. So when you pave a street, that's not nature, you
No,
know,
no.
not at all. So if you've ever seen a place where they've stopped paving the road, you know what it looks like.
Yeah.
You've got a tree coming through the middle of a road. Well,
Hmm.
we are, in essence, cities and even, anything else is basically negative entropy. So we need to be as natural as possible. That to me is Venus in Libra, a love of balance, a love of nature, a love of truth. That to me is it, because Venus is about love. Venus is about aesthetics. Um,
Hmm.
and so, and like you said with the cigarette case,
Yes.
he's got an attachment to the cigarette case because he knows he's going to be in battle again, and he's going to be in the desert, in the Kalahari desert with baboons, and he doesn't want to take this beautiful cigarette case into a place like that,
Yeah.
you know, where it's gonna be, he understands that, and there's this, sentimental attachment to it, and she's
Absolutely.
yeah, he gets it. He gets that this is something that it's like I'm attached to stuff that is battered and torn because it's a part of me in a way.
Hmm.
It's gone through. I have stuff that's really, by those standards, old. Um, stuff that I've had for decades that has been in the well, it has been through many experiences in my life.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. You know what I mean, don't you?
I know absolutely what you mean, and there again, that's how he felt. He was attached. He had
Right.
memories attached to that cigarette case. He didn't care what it looked like.
No.
He cared about what it kind of represented in his life. But I'll tell you what, I'm just smiling because can you conjure up? Do you remember the look she gave him? She just does this little tight thing with her face. And it
That's
just makes
right.
me laugh, you know, when he doesn't want to take the cigarette case. And she's just like, you know,
It's what I call a Catholic look, you
yes,
know?
yes,
You know what I mean,
that
don't
would
you?
be, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the pinched face, you
Yes,
know?
yes.
Yeah. I only say that because 'cause I've received it most of my life.
Mhm. Well, yes,
Yeah. Not that
yes.
I've known I won't get into how I know, but I've known, so
Mhm. Well, and there again, just, you know, whether you're talking about that movie or that relationship, that whole thing of respecting somebody else's attachments, but
right,
also, you know, wanting to introduce something new. And maybe, I mean, and she was obviously very, very into appearances, but she was
right,
also very into function. Like she wanted to get married to him and she wanted him to have a job in a city where they could live together happily. Not, she
right,
didn't want to be off, you know, on these journalistic trips.
right, and that's his life, and that's
Uh-huh.
his he loved everything about it,
Right.
everything, and he could find adventure in nothing, hence the movie, you
Mm-hmm.
know? You
Mm-hmm.
talk about attachments to things, I and bobbleheads. I'm looking right now at a bobblehead on a shelf right here just a few feet away from me that is almost as old as I am, and I'm pretty damn old. And his name is Moppy, and he was in my dad's office from the time I can remember. Um, and he's a little bit he got broken somewhere along the way. A little piece of him's gone, but he's just exactly the same. And I would never part with him,
Mm-hmm.
And he's actually in really good shape, but he's a product of the early 50s,
Mm-hmm.
and his head still bobbles, and he means everything to me in many ways, because he was in my dad's office, and I think in some ways he reminded my dad of me. So I don't really know what it's about, but he was always in my dad's office on a shelf, and so now he's on my shelf, and I know that there are people that I've been married to. I've only been married twice, but I know that they have never liked Moppy.
Oh,
Um, I'm just sure of it because he's,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, he's that sort of, but I'll tell you something. Uh, he's here and he'll always be here. So he's like that cigarette lighter. He's a
Mm-hmm.
annoying and whatever he may be, but that's just the way it is. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that. And so that's more Taurus to me. Um, the possession that is it's not going anywhere. Does that make sense? Or is that
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn?
No, I would say that is very much Taurus because I see Taurus as being very possessive or having possessions and they want them because I love it. It's beautiful or it feels good. Whereas Capricorn, I see as wanting possessions as a status symbol or what they can do with the possessions.
Right. We're
You
now
know, whereas Taurus, no, they're going to have that on their desk and say this is mine and nobody can have it.
well, let's do a little utilitarian. Let's do a little lesson in astrology here. I've got another
Okay,
story for you, okay?
absolutely. Yeah.
So a friend helped me move, not so long, well, 20 some years ago,
Yeah.
okay, and my
Couple of
and my
decades.
wife I had, there was when I was in back years and years and years ago, there was a store going out of business, and they were selling Goodyear blimp models, very, very inexpensively, like $1 a piece. Now,
Mhm.
there were 4 Goodyear blimps in their fleet. They each had a different name. I don't remember those names now, but I was a Goodyear blimp fanatic. Um, just nuts about the Goodyear blimp. I actually, when I was
Uh-huh.
going to school in Louisiana, I got to see the Goodyear blimp because it came over there. And
Mhm.
so I bought 4 of these, meaning eventually to have a fleet, my own fleet of Goodyear blimps with the names on the tails and all that sort of thing. And I would have lines in my house, and I would actually fly them around the house with these lines, right?
Oh, yeah.
I was in my 20s, so you can hopefully forgive that. But
That's
so
okay. A
after
child at heart.
that's right, and I had one of them, a child, still a child, and maybe just everywhere, I don't even know. But, I had one of these put together, and I had it in the box, but this guy looked at the blimp and said, looked at these 3 blimps that were there and said, "Wow, these are really cool." And so my wife said, "Here, have one." Yes,
Oh my God.
and gave him one, right? Now to this day, and it's been 3 decades, I still hold a grudge about that. Astrologically speaking, what is that?
Oh, wow. Well, you are a Taurus, though.
Oh boy, am I.
Sun sign Taurus.
It's petty. I know it's petty, but I'd had them for just forever, from the time I was 20 years old, and I had designs for them that maybe would never have come to pass, and she had no idea what they meant to me, but they weren't hers to give away, you know?
Yes.
But it just goes to show you what could happen, um, and so I don't know what that is. I've been trying. I always try to categorize things elementally, astrologically, tarot-wise, I Ching-wise. I do that with everything, but that's something I haven't. I think that's Scorpio.
Okay.
What do you think?
Well, I could see it being both Scorpio and Taurus.
Taurus.
And
Well, it is the axis.
you've got the Scorpio moon.
Yeah, I've got the
Because
Scorpio moon.
because
Yeah.
like I said, I think with Taurus, they are into possessions, but I'm not sure it's something that they can actually explain. And there again, if your wife said, "Why do you need 4 of them? You've got 4, I'll give 1 away." I'm not
Yeah.
sure, Taurus comes up with a rational description of
No,
why
and
they must
never.
have all 4. It's yeah,
No.
I mean, think about the mythology in the first place of the bull.
That's right.
That Poseidon gave to King whatever.
Pasiphae. Pasiphae,
Yeah,
yeah, or oh,
and
no,
and
not to King Minos, right, yeah,
yeah, and he didn't wanna give up the bull. I mean, it's like
right.
it's a passion, it's an attraction, it's like, "It belongs to me," and there again, I often think, talking about beginning astrology, when I'm teaching a class or when we're talking about that 2nd house, which is ruled by Taurus, I always say, "Think of the baby. Once they get to be about 2 years old, what is one of the things they say? 'Mine.' It's
Mine.
mine, mine,
It's
mine. And
all
the toys,
mine.
right, the toys, they're all
Yeah,
mine. And you're not arguing with them. It's not rational. But once they kind of get beyond this, okay, here's my fingers, here are my toes, this is my body, all of a sudden, then they look out into the world and it's all mine.
yeah,
And by
yeah.
the way, I have a dog who just loves stuffed animals and toys of all sorts. And one of my neighbors recently, she said, "I know how many toys you buy for him. He always wants something new. So, I bought a couple for my dog and she doesn't like them. So she passed them on to me." Well,
Uh,
she gave me this little, it's a relatively small little purple oblong toy. And I always call it the purple dog. And my dog actually already had one. But I thought,
oh,
yeah, if I bring something new into the house, he wants it. So, man, he was on that little purple stuffed animal like you would not believe. And he's carrying it around the house. And in fact, I said, "Okay, we're going to leave. put that down. And he's like, no, he's not, he just runs. And then we're going outside and I'm like, I don't want that outside, and he just like, nope, he has to have it. But now what he's doing, he went and dug out from his toy box the other purple dog. And now he's obsessed with the two
Interesting.
of them.
Ah,
And once again, I'm just thinking, what is this about? But he's now obsessed with the two of them and he keeps them together.
wow.
But there again, I'm not sure there's not a rational thing about it. And that's how it is. I'm not sure we're ever going to explain why
I
I'm
I
attracted to this, or I want this, or this belongs to
but
me.
I think we solved it today. I think it's the Scorpio-Taurus axis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fixed
It's
energy.
yeah. No, I think that's it. I really do. I think that's that essence of it. It's that, it's the dream. It broke the dream.
Mm-hmm.
It's that was never going to happen probably anyway, but it cracked the crystal ball, you know?
Right.
It's like, "How dare you destroy my vision of the future," when it was probably
Yes.
never gonna happen anyway, you know?
Right. Well, and
Um,
the other thing, with Taurus in general is it represents security and safety. So even
right.
though there's no direct correlation, that was not going to make you safe. It was not going to keep
No.
you secure. It was still a symbol. It was a symbol of your being able maybe to control your life.
Well,
And
it
she
was
stepped
no,
right in and broke
I
that.
I
You're
think
not in
more it was a
control.
memory of a time when I was in college
Yeah.
and I got something because at that time, I was living on Kraft macaroni and cheese 10 for a dollar, you know?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
these were a blessing, but they were also very expensive, a buck a piece, you know? I mean, it took everything I had almost to buy these things, so they were very dear to me.
Right.
Um, yeah, I'm beginning to get it. They were like Schmegel, with the Lord of the Rings and these that ring, you know?
Mhm.
Oh, they were just, "These are my precious," that was
Yes,
that sort of
yes.
thing.
Yes.
And I'm beginning to really get it. They were a match set of nothing, but they were my nothing. I still have
Mhm.
2 of them in a box, sealed, they've never been opened,
What
mint.
happened to the third one?
The 3rd one is put together in a box somewhere, I don't even know where it
Oh,
is now. But I have things like that. I have my mom, I know what I got it. Thank you, doctor. I owe you big. When I was a kid, my mom threw away all my baseball cards, including my Mickey Mantle card, my Roger Maris card, my Whitey Ford card, Sandy Koufax, Yogi Berra,
yeah.
all of which I could probably, you know, um, do lots of nice things. Like, I wouldn't want to travel, have to take the special pillow and all that stuff. But, my mom, when I did some hitchhiking that almost got me killed. But while I was away, she, she got rid of all my comic books
Yeah.
that today would be worth a fortune because they were original underground comics from the '60s and horror comics from the '60s and unbelievable. And this guy I knew came over and said, yeah, I loaned Mo a couple of comics. I need them. He went up to my room and took everything I had and she didn't stop him. I never saw them again.
Wow.
And so, I mean, through the years and she used to throw stuff away of mine. And so I got it. That was that version of this. That's
Mhm.
pure Taurus.
And what's funny is I have a story similar to that of something my mom threw away when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And I never ever forgot it. And all of a sudden, I mean, it's kind of opening a window in my mind too of, maybe that's kind of part of the human condition because my mom now is 96 years old and she has dementia. But the one thing
Yeah.
is she's always feeling like people are stealing her things. Now,
Wow.
I'm beginning to think that that may be a common thread for people in with dementia but she always thinks people are stealing her things. And I thought, wow, just as we're sitting here talking, I'm thinking how interesting, because I mean, forever I carried that she threw that away.
Wow. Isn't
And
that
and all of a
something?
sudden, and she was my mother. She looked and said, "Okay, we don't need that anymore." I mean, I'm 4 years old. I mean, to me, it was everything, but not to her. And so she was just doing her job as a mother, if you know what I mean. But it's interesting now. So maybe there are these threads or these patterns. Are they family
Right.
patterns, or we just carry them with
Yeah.
us, that somebody's going to steal from us something that somewhere along the line, maybe we believe we stole, you
I
know?
had a pop bottle cap collection. I would fill my pockets with them when I found them on the street, and I would
Mhm.
put them on my dresser. As a matter of fact, I have, my ace of discs in my tarot deck, the one that has, I think, a couple of pop bottle caps in them because I used to and I had this collection, and she threw those away when I was about 5. Destroyed me,
Yes.
really upset me. Because they I had and I collected special kinds, knee-high grape soda and knee-high orange and Coca-Cola and all that, and they were and I collected them in specific condition with the cork inside, and and so I then went around isn't that fascinating? Um, ab QED, quod erat demonstratum, that's it. Wow! This is
Yeah.
quite a breakthrough.
Yes. Well, for me too. I'm kind of sitting here going, huh, you know?
Yeah, and so I made it and so what I did is I quit cleaning up my room because of that, to make my
Ah,
room as confusing to her as possible, so she wouldn't wanna come in, and she wouldn't be able to find stuff to throw it away. Aha. Hence my office.
yes.
But truthfully, that's remarkable, and that makes perfect sense. So these little traumas that we experience, um, isn't that fascinating how we can open things up,
Mhm.
with
Well, and just
Pluto
that
or
idea of,
opposition?
yeah, it Pluto, Scorpio, but Venus also, as we go through this Venus and Libra cycle, maybe it will open up some things about what we think belongs to us. Because Venus rules Taurus, and so and how that shapes the relationships that we have with people.
Well, and Venus is just trying to balance the scales.
Mhm.
Venus is just trying to do what's right, but doesn't always manage to get it done.
Mhm.
I mean, a mother is just trying to clean up,
Right.
just trying to take care of the child, but, I was a stubborn and rebellious child, you know? I
Mhm.
mean, when my mother first tried to I saw ghosts when I was a kid, and, I told my parents this, and my mother, I think, felt that they took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Your child has a very vivid imagination." And, I'm actually gonna tell that story not this week on my show, but I think on the 29th before Halloween.
Yeah.
Um, but, I think she decided I needed religion. And,
Oh.
so she told me some stories, religious stories, and, Moses and the miracles and all that stuff. And I was 5, I think. Maybe no, I think I was 6. And when she was done telling me those stories, I looked at her and said, "Do you really believe those stories? Because they sound like fairy tales." And she said, "Of course I
Mm.
believe them." I said, "Then you're stupid."
Ooh.
And, and she slapped me really hard. And I realized I think I may have made a mistake, you know?
Right.
But, because I couldn't believe that she believed those stories because they didn't seem, that was really kind of my first, but she was just trying to make sure that I didn't fall into a well of, because I was already interested in the occult at that age.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, and
bizarre.
Yeah, but when you think about it, really, that's so true. It's so equivalent. I remember, I mean, my parents were Catholic, and some of the things they told me, of course, I swallowed it for sure. But I remember thinking, okay, and how does this work? Like I remember one thing my mom had told me was, I don't remember what had happened. I was upset about something, and she said, "Well, offer it up to Jesus, and just imagine the cuts in his hands. He had, these nail holes in his hands. Think about how much that hurt." And I'm kind of thinking, and that's going to help me how?
Great honk.
Well,
A
it's kind of
terrible
like,
thing.
and I'm like, okay, but I remember my rational mind is going, okay, and this is going to help me how?
Yeah,
And
no
all I
kidding.
all I could figure out is you don't have a right to be upset because he was in so much more pain than you are. So I tried to accept that and go, okay, but I'll tell you what, it didn't take away the pain. You
No.
know, it didn't
Isn't
take
that
away the pain.
funny? Yeah, I mean, that's it's interesting. I mean, I was really and that was kind of, um, my relationship with her, that full moon in Scorpio, um, you know, the moon in
Yeah.
Vedic astrology, is our relationship with our mother.
Hmm.
And so you look to where that's gonna go, so it was an interesting relationship, I'll say that.
Yeah.
It was tempestuous and tumultuous and, interesting,
Yeah. Well,
especially
in
when I be
Western, I was just going to say in Western astrology too, the moon represents mother, so it can
yeah,
represent maybe some qualities of your mother, but at least your relationship with her, how you
yeah,
see her.
yeah. We
So
saw
if you
each
look,
other
yeah, go
interestingly.
ahead. Yeah.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, and if you look at the charts of siblings, they'll have very different moons. And when you talk to them, you realize they had different mothers. I mean,
Oh, that's for
literally in
sure.
their minds, they had different mothers. It was a completely different relationship. Same person, but a different relationship based on that moon.
Oh, my siblings were raised by a different mother.
Yeah.
They had no idea. Actually, they went out of their way not to be raised by my mother, you know?
Hmm.
Especially but they weren't hippie freaks like I was, you know?
Yeah.
Um, they weren't I was really quite different, and I was completely immersed in this world of ours, you know? This
Hmm.
world of the mysteries, and I was completely I mean, at one point, I was painting, what we might call very creepy paintings, you
Hmm.
know, and I had them all over my room, and it kept people out of my room. It worked very well, including
Yes.
my brothers.
Oh, how
But,
funny.
it was just I mean, it was one of those things where I was heavily into e exploration of the Scorpio world. I loved
Hmm.
it. It
Hmm.
was thrilling for me. Um, Man, I had a great time.
Well, which reminds me, we only have 4 minutes left, but we didn't really talk too much. Well, we didn't specifically talk about Sun and Scorpio, although we've
Sun
talked a
in
lot about
Scorpio.
Scorpio. So if in 2 minutes you can say anything you want to say about Sun and Scorpio, advice for
I love
people.
Scorpio. I love Scorpio. Scorpio is not to be feared. It's the haunted house of the zodiac, you know.
Hmm.
And the sun in Scorpio is going through the haunted house with the lights on, you
Right.
know. Flick on all the lights and walk around and look
See
at
what's there.
everything. Yeah, see what's there. And don't ever be afraid of Scorpio energy. I've known a lot of Scorpios. I have a full moon in Scorpio. It's 3 minutes to full.
Hmm.
And it's great. I was scared terribly when I was a kid, and I don't think I've really been scared of anything since, except when my kids were having surgery, to be quite honest, you know?
Uh-huh.
Those are the things that I guess you have to be scared of. But, other than that, I mean, I'm not afraid of the supernatural because there is no such thing. Everything is natural.
Hmm.
Um, I grew up having mushroom cloud dreams, but I think we all did that. Um, but the thing that's fascinating about Scorpio is that we all have that energy within us. It is this pocket a machine within us that our own fears are the things that scare us. And the movies that they make are so silly. Um,
Hmm.
I laugh at those movies. I don't think I'm supposed to, but I usually do. There's some movies that are really kind of fascinating to me. The ones that are really quite, I don't know, some other day. But the Sun in Scorpio is a time for self evaluation. It's a time to look into yourself and really find out what's within you and look into mythologies and really delve deeply into yourself. That's what I say.
Yay. Thank you. And by the way,
You're
everybody, the sun moves into Scorpio next Wednesday evening. I think that's the 22nd.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got going on next week. So, well, there's several things going on next week. But Mo, thank you so much for being here today.
Of course. Of
Do you
course.
have any announcements you'd like to make before we close the show?
My show's on tomorrow, and I think I'm going to talk about the personalities of the 8 trigrams of the I Ching as if they were
Ooh, that would be
folks.
great.
Yeah, as if they're people, because I like them. I love them, as a matter of fact, and how that can help you to understand I Ching readings very well, much more easily. So
Okay. And tell them exactly what your YouTube channel is.
it's YouTube at Mo Abdelbaki. That's it. So it's very simple. I
So,
shouldn't have named it that. I should have made it something simple, but I did it years and years ago, and so I'm
okay.
stuck with it.
Okay. So YouTube at Mo Abdelbaki.
That's it.
That's how they find it. Okay,
Right.
great. And
And
your
it's one
show,
word,
okay. And your show comes on at what time? 3
3 PM
Pacific?
Pacific.
Okay,
3 PM
great.
Pacific, and all the old shows are there. So you can listen to old ones, and I'm still getting used to doing the radio show and this show, at on YouTube at the same time. So there are little glitches that happen and everything, but it's all so cute.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you,
And
CA.
that
Thank
sounds like a
you,
great
Serena,
show.
very much too. You're great people. You really are.
Oh, thank you. And I look forward to that show tomorrow. All right,
Mm.
everybody. Thanks for joining us today, whether you're just listening or maybe you're listening to one of the archives or in the chat room. And I didn't get the chance to shout out to everybody over there, but thank you so much for joining us live today. And thanks to our producer, Serena. And I want you to stick around if you've got the time because I am joining Kelly Whetstone. So go over and tune it into either one2listen.com or to her YouTube channel, which is Empowerment with Kelly Whetstone. And we'll be over there in about 5 minutes. And here's the quote of the week going back to Venus and Libra. And I saw this and I thought it's very profound. That's how it felt like to me by Woody Allen with Venus and Libra. And he said, I've come to the conclusion that the artist cannot justify life or come up with a cogent reason as to why life is meaningful. But the artist can provide you with a cold glass of water on a hot day. And I absolutely thought, wow, that's just it. It may not be the meaning of life, but in this moment, the artist is like a cold glass of water on a hot day. So this is CA signing out. You can find me for personal sessions on one2listen.com. And please feel free to, request a scheduled call at a day and a time that's good for you. You have been listening to Everyday Astrology with my guest, Mo Abdelbaki, on 12 Radio and on YouTube, where we are changing the way that we listen to the world.